I did ask Shaun Abrahams for an interview and he declined, and he sent me a fairly long WhatsApp message expressing his extreme disappointment at the court ruling on Monday, saying that he'd been a prosecutor for 23 years, 3 years as the National Director of Public Prosecutions, and that as from Monday he is unemployed, which I personally was quite surprised about, because I thought maybe he would be placed on long leave, or there'd be some sort of suspension pending an inquiry, and then he would go back to prosecuting perhaps in KwaZulu-Natal. But he said he is no longer a member of the NPA and he has no job. He is at home.
Yeah, but he does talk about what perhaps the future holds for him, and it seems it's in the legal field, isn't it?
That's right. I mean, he says he's very upset. I'm just looking through here. He says, I will always be a prosecutor at heart and will certainly miss being a prosecutor. I'll also miss those committed members of the NPA during this time. I know it couldn't have been easy. And I suppose he could join the KwaZulu-Natal bar, or he could become a litigator. But once, you often find that once a prosecutor, always a prosecutor. They very much feel in their hearts that they're fighting for justice, they're going after the bad guys, and they find it very difficult to what they feel is defending the indefensible. So it's quite difficult for prosecutors to become advocates or defense lawyers on the other side. But he says here that he hopes to still serve the legal community in a capacity going forward to serve his country. So maybe he's looking for some sort of consulting work, or becoming an ombudsman, or joining some other kind of state institution where he could contribute in a field which would be able to access his legal capacity.
And he also had a message for the people that he leaves behind at the NPA. Let's not forget here, Annika, as you just said, this is someone who has been a prosecutor for about 23 years, he says in that message, and has fronted the prosecution of some of, really big cases in our recent history.
That's right. I mean, I find that a lot of the social media about Shaun Abrahams, especially when it came to the prosecution of Pravin Gordhan and, that whole Johan Boyson, a lot of those state capture issues, there was an incredible amount of anger and vitriol aimed at Shaun Abrahams. But going to the NPA offices on Monday, he was seen very much as a person who knew the prosecutors, who knew the field, as somebody who was a life prosecutor that understood what other prosecutors were going through. And there was a fair amount of sadness at that NPA building, and a fair amount of support from his colleagues, I found. It wasn't the same kind of outrage and anger that you would see on social media about Shaun Abrahams. So I think that his colleagues liked him. Generally, I think that they got on well with him. I think he understood the kind of pressures they were under. And he says here, it would be remiss of me not to thank the hardworking members of the NPA for their commitment. It would have been a very, very difficult time, and he wishes the new acting NDPP and the new NDPP well for the future. I thought this bit was interesting. I'd like to thank my Lord and Saviour for having blessed me with such a wonderful opportunity. I would not be the person I am today without it. And I'd also like to thank the leaders of government. He's thanking the former president here who afforded me this opportunity. I am all the better for it. So Shaun Abrahams sitting at home, going to take some time out, spend some time with his family, reassess, I suppose, recharge his batteries. He must have been under a fair amount of pressure. I'm pretty sure he knew what was coming for quite some time, and to sit and plot the way forward.